with the latest efforts from D.C. officials to try and get a handle on the concerning trends in juvenile crime. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Scott Thuman.
And I'm Michelle Marsh. At the heart of the legislation before the council today is what to do to keep kids from reoffending.
Now, that proposal up for debate today aims to mandate oversight and accountability for the agency that's in charge of putting kids who've broken the law in D.C. back on the right track.
Its staff is in charge of supervision, teaching, and overall rehabilitation. The bill would create a permanent oversight body and require the agency to change its practices to treat each child differently, essentially no cookie-cutter approach.
Now, it would also make it easier for the courts to step in if it looks like D.C. is failing to offer the right services.
So the increased scrutiny on juvenile crime procedures comes as 7 News has uncovered more about a double murder suspect's history.
25-year-old Andre Green is accused of opening fire outside a Southeast daycare back in July, killing 2 men and wounding a toddler. 7 News dug into court records and found his 2019 gun conviction expunged under the district's Youth Rehabilitation Act. Now, Green was not a juvenile. The scrubbing of his record is allowed, though, because that law lets convictions be set aside for people up to 25 years old.
And after Green was convicted on 2021 gun charges, he again asked for his guilty pleas to be set aside. The U.S. Attorney's Office filed opposition just 2 days before the deadly shooting, citing Green's extensive juvenile history. Today's oversight bill was presented to the council by the district's attorney general, whose office oversees youth crime prosecution, and out of frustration in seeing the same offenders over and over again.
All right, let's get to our Washington, D.C. reporter, Felicia Ashley. She's joining us now live, and she was at today's council meeting. Felicia, are all the council members on the same page about this bill?
They are not, and first it starts with who's going to actually make sure that DYRS does everything that is listed in this bill, right? That's the first step towards accountability. Well, right now, the auditor's office is suggested for this, but multiple council members highlighted the fact that it's council's responsibility to oversee all of this. But right now, they say it's not something that the council can take on. So they left today's hearing without making a decision on who would be responsible for making sure DYRS does everything in this bill. And right now, they're still uncertain on who would take on that responsibility.
All right, Felicia, and the Attorney General sent a letter to the council about this bill saying that the city's youth rehabilitation services is, quote, not providing sufficient supervision and intervention to protect our communities and ensure that kids won't reoffend.
So how does this bill actually address that concern?
Right. Well, and that's one thing that some council members also pointed out. They say this bill does a great job with accountability, giving DYRS deadlines and a checklist. But what about the actual tangible physical change inside DYRS to make sure that when these juveniles are sent back out into the community, they have the actual tools to be better civilians within the community and not offend again? One thing they mentioned, for example, are there enough beds? Is there enough staffing in there to make sure that they're placed within the facility on time? So during this meeting, I actually spoke with Councilman Trayon White because he used to oversee DYRS as part of one of his chair committees. This is actually the first time you have spoken to him about anything DYRS related since he was removed from that committee. This is what he had to say. I know this act focuses heavily on oversight in terms of resources and support in there. What else needs to be added to it, or what have you experienced is missing?
Well, what we are deciding is where to house this legislation to make sure it's fully funded. The mayor does not support this. We believe as a council we need more eyes and ears on DYRS because of the many issues we've had over the years.
Multiple council members said they want to learn more about this bill. They also want to talk more about it before its second reading. And today, 3 council members, that's Pinto, Henderson, and Bonds, all put in no votes on this today. Of course, we'll have more on this coming up live at 6, but for now, we're reporting live from the Wilson Building. Felicia Ashley, 7 News.
All right, just a couple of hours ago, Mayor Muriel released a statement saying that she does not support the Attorney General's bill.
And it says in part, quote, despite its stated intentions, the bill introduces obstacles that further complicate an already complex system for at-risk youth and their families. She also called it costly and burdensome. She's asked for the council to table the bill. The mayor has introduced her own youth crime bill that would restrict plea agreements and send more offenders through the youth detention system.